Hi everyone, I'm John, your YouTube English teacher. In this lesson, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to read and study a recent news article. You can find this article all around the internet, on CNN and other news websites. This is real news, and there are many versions of the same article. Well, in this lesson, I have two different versions for you that we're going to study. The first version will be very basic, around intermediate level. The second version is going to be for native speakers. The vocabulary will be much more advanced. We're going to read the first version and then the second version. And at the end, we're going to compare both versions. The name of the article is Voice Actors Sue AI Company. And as we're studying this, the color red will generally represent the events or grammar. The color blue will generally represent vocabulary. I'm going to explain everything. Voice Actors Sue AI Company. Our first vocabulary word is pronounced AI, and this means artificial intelligence. Very common these days. Now, let's start. Voice actors Paul Sky Lehrman and Linnea Sage are taking legal action against an AI company called Lovo. They claim that Lovo tricked them into providing voice samples for projects that were later used to create AI-generated voices. These voices were then used in YouTube videos, podcasts, and other media without their permission. Voice actors just means a person who uses their voice to act. This is a profession. Taking legal action against means someone is using the law or the legal system to fight against a company or a person. You can see that this is in the present continuous with ing, but it's not happening right now. It's not happening at this moment. This just means it started in the past, it's continuing now as a process, and it will finish in the future. They claim means that this is their argument. This is what they want to prove using the legal system. And they claim that Lovo tricked them into providing voice samples. If you trick someone into doing something, you deceive them. You tell them a lie. You tell them something that isn't true, so they do something for you. In this case, they tricked them into providing voice samples. If you notice, providing is with ing. Why? Well, the word into is a preposition in English, and a little grammar trick is that after prepositions, we have to use the ing form. So, Lovo tricked them into providing voice samples for projects that were later used to create AI-generated voices. Were later used is a structure that we call the passive voice in English. The company used the voice samples, or we can change it to the voice samples were used by the company. But for what reason? Why did they use these voice samples? Well, we can answer the question why with the word to. To create. Why did they use the voice samples? To create AI-generated voices. For example, why are you going to the supermarket? To buy food. Why are you sitting down? To rest. Why are you recording a video? To help my students on YouTube. These voices were then used in YouTube videos, podcasts, etc. Here we have the passive voice again, were then used by the company. The word then here means that it was after our original situation. Lovo, based in Berkeley, California, uses AI technology to make voices for marketing, education, and product demonstrations. Learman and Sage found out their voices were being used when they heard them in videos and a podcast. They had never agreed to this, and now they're suing Lovo. They want to represent others who might have been taken advantage of too. Lovo, based in Berkeley, California. Well, based in just means located in. It's another way to express that. And again, Lovo uses AI technology. Why? For what reason? To make voices for marketing. Learman and Sage found out their voices were being used. Found out is a phrasal verb. The present of found out is find out, which just means learn or discover. So they learned their voices were being used. Again, we have the passive voice. This is another version of the same structure. The company was using their voices, or their voices were being used by the company. They had never agreed to this. The word had here represents the past perfect in English. The past perfect is kind of like a second past tense. It just means it happened before an event in the past. Before all of this situation, they had never agreed to this. Before everything. And now we return to the present. They are suing Lovo. Suing is a word that just means they're taking legal action against. They're using the law or the legal system to fight this company. They want to represent others. Here we have two verbs. We have want and represent. And generally in English, we put the word to between two verbs. Want to go, want to eat, want to represent others. Want to represent others who might have been taken advantage of. Let's start with the vocabulary word taken advantage of. If you take advantage of someone or something, it means you're using that thing for your own personal benefit. This can be a good or bad thing. The word might is the same as the word may, which is related to the word maybe, possibly. These are modal verbs, might and may, just like could, should, or would. And when we add the word have to a modal verb like might have, it just means might becomes the past version. For example, in the present, he might go to the supermarket now. Maybe he will go to the supermarket. But in the past, he might have gone to the supermarket yesterday. I don't know. It's possible. Been is another form of be, and again we see the passive voice, which again is very common in news articles. So, who might have been taken advantage of. The company took advantage of them. They were taken advantage of by the company. The company has taken advantage of them. They have been taken advantage of by the company. They want to represent others who might have been taken advantage of by the company. This lawsuit is part of a larger issue where artists and writers say tech companies use their work without asking. This can affect their rights and how they make money from their own work. Lovo has not responded to the lawsuit yet. This lawsuit is exactly what this article is about. They're suing the company using the law, the legal system. So this is a lawsuit. The word issue is just another word for problem. It's a little more formal because this is in an article. It's a serious situation. Now I have an interesting question. Why do we use the word say and not the word tell? Well, the verb say is generally not directly to a person. That's the verb tell. The verb tell is more direct. You tell a person something when you communicate that information. Say is more general. We generally just say things. Words come out of our mouth, and they're not going directly to one person. So the artists and writers say tech companies use their work without asking. They're not telling anyone specifically. They're just saying it as part of their argument. And here we have the word tech. This is short for technology. Be careful with the pronunciation. It's not tech, it's tech. The word without is another preposition, just like the word into from before. So remember, after prepositions, we have to use the ing form, without asking. This can affect their rights and how they make money from their own work. I have another interesting question. Why do we use the verb make and not do in this situation? Well, generally, make means create. Not always, but generally. So, by working, these people are making money. They're creating money for themselves. This is how they live. They work. They make money. And finally, Lovo has not responded to the lawsuit yet. This is the present perfect, but we can also use the past. Lovo did not respond to the lawsuit yet. But when writing or reading articles, the present perfect is just a little more formal than the past. In American English, we generally use the past when we speak, in most situations, but when we read, it's very common to see the present perfect. One more vocabulary word. Responded to. Now, I think we know the definition, but why do we use the word to here? Well, to has a lot of different meanings and definitions in English, but in this case, it means movement. How? Well, when you go to the grocery store, you move there. When you fly to another country, you move there. Well, here, respond to tells us that our words are moving. This is communication, and this is why we say talk to. Talk to someone, respond to someone. Our words are moving, just like when we move or go to the grocery store. And congratulations! We just finished the first version of this article. Now, let's go to the second version. It's a lot more advanced. Voice actors sue AI company. Level 2. In a recent legal development, voice actors Paul Sky Lehrman and Linnea Sage have filed a lawsuit against Lovo, an AI company that allegedly misled them into providing voice samples for the creation of AI-generated voice clones. These cloned voices had been used in various digital media platforms, including YouTube and podcasts, without the actor's consent. A recent legal development. Well, a development is just a situation that develops. Again, we see the word voice actors, which is our profession that we're talking about. They have filed a lawsuit against. Well, remember, we saw the word against in the other version, so file a lawsuit against just means take legal action against. They're suing Lovo, an AI company that allegedly misled them into providing voice samples. Well, allegedly is a word that's very common in the legal system, which means someone said this. They didn't prove it yet, but someone claimed this. Misled means misguide, or guide in the wrong direction. It was said, allegedly, that this company fooled them. They tricked them into doing something, into providing voice samples for the creation of AI-generated voice clones. Well, a clone is just another word for copy, voice copies. These cloned voices had been used by the company. Again, we see the past perfect with had been used by the company in various digital media platforms. Remember, the past perfect means it's an event that happened before an event. So, before this lawsuit, before this legal action, the voices had been used by the company. The company used those voices. And all of this happened without the actor's consent. Well, consent is just another word for permission. Without the actor's permission. Without the permission of the actors. Here we can see actors has an apostrophe at the end. Well, why is that apostrophe at the end? Because normally the apostrophe goes here. Well, it's at the end of the word because it shows us that there's more than one actor. If you remember in our article, there are two actors. Because there are two voice actors, the apostrophe goes at the end to show its possession, the consent of the two actors. The actors consent. Operating out of Berkeley, California, Lovo advertises its AI voice technology for applications in marketing, educational content, and product demonstrations. The controversy emerged when Lehrman and Sage recognized their voices in public broadcasts, which they had not authorized. Their lawsuit aims to address this misuse and seeks to establish a class action for others potentially affected. I think the first sentence in this paragraph is generally pretty clear. But the controversy is a situation that isn't clear. That's why we're here. Should this company use those voices, or is it not possible according to the law? That's this controversy. People are trying to understand if this is acceptable or not. People are talking about it. It's disputed, and it's not clear. The controversy emerged, which means appeared. Emerge is just another word for appear. When Lehrman and Sage recognized their voices in public broadcasts, which they had not authorized. Again, we see the past perfect. They had not authorized this before the company used their voices. Remember, the past perfect represents a situation before a past event. Again, they had not authorized this use of their voices before the company used them. Their lawsuit aims to address this misuse. Well, aims tells us that they're focused. It's their objective. It's their target. They're focused on addressing this misuse, and their lawsuit seeks to establish a class action. Well, the word seek is very similar to the word search. So they're searching for the result to establish a class action, which is a law term, a law vocabulary word, very similar to lawsuit. And it's for others potentially affected by the company's actions. Potentially is a word that means maybe. So they might have been affected by what the company did. The broader context of this lawsuit reflects growing concerns among creative professionals about tech companies exploiting their intellectual property without proper authorization, potentially undermining their careers and financial stability. The response from Lovo to the allegations has yet to be disclosed. The broader context of this lawsuit. The word broader tells us that we're talking about the wide context, the bigger context, the big picture of this lawsuit, which reflects growing concerns among creative professionals or around creative professionals about tech companies exploiting or taking advantage of or using someone for their benefit in a negative way, exploiting their intellectual property, which is their creative work, without proper authorization, potentially undermining their careers and financial stability, or the way they make money. This word undermining is interesting, and it just means making weaker or not strong. Undermining their careers and financial stability means making their financial situations worse, more difficult to make money. It undermines their financial stability. And finally, we have the response from Lovo to, remember the word to, communication, movement, to the allegations, or what the other side is claiming, allegedly, has yet to be disclosed. And this structure is just a more advanced structure of they have not disclosed this yet. Disclosed is a word that means revealed or shown. They have not shown this yet. They have not shown their response yet. Let's all take a breath after that last section because that was some advanced English. In a moment, we're going to compare both versions of that article, version 1 and version 2, and you're going to see how English can be basic or more complicated. This is going to help you understand when you read those articles on CNN's website, for example. But this is also the section where I need your help. Remember, this is the first time I'm doing a lesson like this, and I plan for many more lessons like this. So leave a comment. Tell me, am I doing a good job? Am I speaking clearly? Am I speaking too fast? Is the grammar clear? Is the vocabulary clear? Or would you like to see something else? Personally, I really like this structure, and with my personal students, we do these exercises all the time. So, after that, let's move to the last section of this lesson and examine both articles. Let's go. Now, the final part of the lesson, it's time to compare both versions. In this section, you're going to see many more colors, but I promise it's going to be clear. So, let's start. In the first version, they are taking legal action against an AI company. In the second section, they have filed a lawsuit against the AI company. In the first version, they claim that Lovo tricked them into providing voice samples. And in the second version, Lovo allegedly misled them into providing voice samples. In the first version, these voices were then used. In the second version, these cloned voices have been used. In the first version, they were used in YouTube videos, podcasts, and other media. And in the second version, it was in various digital media platforms, including YouTube and podcasts. In the first version, it was without their permission, and in the second version, it was without the actor's consent. In the first version, Lovo is based in Berkeley, California. And in the second version, it's operating out of Berkeley, California. In our first version, Lovo uses AI technology to make voices for marketing, education, and product demonstrations. And in our second version, Lovo advertises its AI voice technology for applications in marketing, educational content, and product demonstrations. In the first version, Lerman and Sage found out their voices were being used. In our second version, the controversy emerged when Lerman and Sage recognized their voices. In our first version, they had never agreed to this. In our second version, which they had not authorized. In our first version, they want to represent others. In our second version, their lawsuit aims to address this misuse and seeks to establish a class action for others. And in our first version, the others who might have been taken advantage of. And in our second version, others who were potentially affected. In our first version, this lawsuit is part of a larger issue. And in our second version, the broader context of this lawsuit reflects growing concerns. In our first version, this issue is about artists and writers, but in our second version, this is among creative professionals. In our first version, the company uses their work without asking. And in our second version, the company's exploiting their intellectual property without proper authorization. In our first version, we have the words "this can," but in our second version, we have the word "potentially." In our first version, this can affect their rights and how they make money from their own work. And in our second version, this is potentially undermining their careers and financial stability. And finally, in our first version, Lovo has not responded to the lawsuit yet. And in our second version, the response from Lovo to the allegations has yet to be disclosed. Again, I hope this lesson helped you. I think it's a pretty unique but useful way to study English. Please let me know in the comments section. Did I speak too fast? Am I speaking too slowly? I don't know. I want your feedback. So thank you so much for watching. As always, we're on our way to 80,000 subscribers, and I appreciate everything. Please like, share, and subscribe, and See you in the next lesson.